Welcome to the Everything Podcast. I am your host, Chuck Manity. And in today's episode, I'll be reading another one of my wife's recaps for Bridgerton. This time it will be more detailed recap of Season 4, Episode 2, titled Time Transfixed. I've already covered Episode 1 of Season 4, so if you missed that, I would highly recommend going back and watching that before continuing this episode. But without any further ado, let's get into it. So, Episode 2, Benedict Bridgerton is absolutely enamored by Sophie Beck. That's our Cinderella. Time rewinds and we find out how Sophie ended up going to the ball. She was creating a second mask for the eldest stepsister, that's Rosamund Lee. But Sophie did it in vain as Rosamund found her mask under her vanity desk. We saw in Episode 1 and it continues Episode 2. So I can say that without a doubt that the second stepsister, Posy Lee, is kind towards Sophie. The stepmother is Lady Penwood, as her second husband was Lord Penwood. Sophie attends the ball with the help of her two closest friends. She wears an old dress from the Lady Penwood's sister, which she found in an attic, and she wears a pair of Lady Penwood shoes, as well as the mask which was made for Rosamund. Sophie claims it is her birthright to attend the ball just as much as it is for Rosamund and Posy. We are then taken even further into Sophie's past to the moment Lord Penwood, that's Sophie's father, is waiting for his new wife and her kids to arrive at the house. Sophie is told by the maid that she should not let Lady Penwood or her kids know that she is Lord Penwood's daughter. Sophie was then introduced as Sophie Beck, Lord Penwood's ward, which Lady Penwood immediately showed disgust towards. Back to the present, Lady Penwood discovers the shoes Sophie borrowed have dirt on them, so she orders Sophie to clean and restitch all of the shoes as well as Rosamund's shoes. It didn't seem as if Lady Penwood knew that it was Sophie, but she did seem to blame Sophie for not keeping her things in check. Queen Charlotte and Lady Danbury are playing a game of chess together, and Lady Danbury asks to discuss what happened at the ball. The Queen starts to gossip about Benedict having disappeared for half the ball and mentions that they should keep an eye on him at Lady Danbury's ball. The seemingly very awkward conversation is then interrupted. The Queen makes a comment that she can be generous when it is deserved, pointedly looking at Lady Danbury. Benedict asks Penelope to discreetly write in Lady Whistledown that he is looking for his Cinderella. Benedict and Eloise scour through the society for the mysterious lady from the ball, with no luck of course. Lady Violet confronts Penelope about what she had written in Lady Whistledown and confirms that Penelope had been writing about Benedict. Lady Violet then confronts Benedict about his search for the mysterious lady and tells him to look into the Penwood family, as the glove he has the family crest sewn into the hem. Sometime in between the search for our Cinderella, we get a glimpse that Lady Violet and Lady Danbury's brother, Lord Anderson, are becoming very close and flirting a lot. We also see that Penelope has a large line of Whistledown admirers. The Queen seems to be bothered by something, but we do not know what that is yet. It could be a worry for Benedict, her eligible bachelor, or could it be the fact that her closest friend, Lady Danbury, has requested to leave society to travel back to her home country. Sophie is indeed Lord Penwood's daughter, and she was quickly disregarded by Lady Penwood. Lord Penwood doesn't reveal much about Sophie's mother. Sophie's only memory or keepsake from her mother is the elegant necklace she is always wearing. My first thought was that Sophie was the offspring from a mistress or a maid, so in other words a bastard, but this doesn't seem like a typical case. It makes me wonder if Lord Penwood was deeply in love with Sophie's mother, but they could not get married, as I don't believe he was married before Sophie's stepmom. or if there's an even deeper secret, such as Sophie was Lord Penwood's sister's daughter and he took Sophie in as his own. We as the audience have not been told the history of Sophie yet, but I'm almost 100% certain that there is more than a simple mistress story here. As Benedict had already met Rosamund while out promenading, he calls on Posy, as his mother had informed him that there are young ladies at the Penwood Manor. Posy excitedly tells Sophie that she has a caller. Sophie fixes Posy's hair and walks to the drawing room where the caller is. As Sophie is walking away, she hears the voice of Benedict and realizes that he is the caller. Sophie's friend squeezes her hand and says that Benedict is looking for Sophie, but Sophie doesn't believe it is it as he asked for Posy. But Posy is the only debutante registered to the Penwood name as Lady Penwood. Made sure to make you a mate. But anyways, her friend tries to convince Sophie to go in and tell Benedict that she is the one he has been looking for. After much back and forth and the music growing more hopeful, it quickly comes to an end and she solemnly says that he does not want to find her but the lady in the silver gown. Let's just take a moment to rub our foreheads at the sheer stupidity. Of course, that is who he wants to find. But he only wants to find her because it's you. You are the one who got him so interested in a lady. So back to the episode. Benedict asks Posy what her costume was for the ball and finds out she was a mermaid, so he inquires if it wasn't silver. When he mentions silver, Lady Penwood seemed to suddenly realize something and asks if the lady in silver caught Benedict's eye, but he avoids the question by saying he is simply trying to figure out everyone he spoke to that night. Perhaps she has figured out that it was Sophie at the ball because she knows that the crest in the glove is the Penwood crest, and she remembers someone with one glove and a silver dress bumping into her at the ball, and she knows that her silver shoes had been scuffed. So all coming together. Whilst Queen Charlotte was taking a nap, Brimsley hurriedly goes to Lady Danbury and pleads for her to come back and apologize to the Queen, as she clearly misses Lady Danbury. If you have seen the Bridgerton spin-off, Queen Charlotte, then you'll understand that the Queen and Lady Danbury have a very strong friendship. Some would say that Lady Danbury is the Queen's only friend, so the conversation between Brimsley and Lady Danbury is an emotional one as she pleads for her to go back to the Queen, and Lady Danbury seems torn as she wants to retire from society. Now, for the moment we have all been waiting for. Lady Penwood confronts Sophie. Lady Penwood gives her gratitude to Sophie for all the hard work of cleaning her shoes. It even sounds sarcastic when I say it. Lady Penwood then requests for Sophie to try on the silver shoes. No excuse was acceptable for Sophie not to try them on. After Sophie had tried on the shoes, Lady Penwood informs Sophie that she knows it was her in the silver dress, as she had found Sophie's dress under her mattress. And so starts a heated argument. I would not give the tension of the scene any justice, so I definitely recommend you go and watch it if you haven't already. However, I will tell you that the argument ends with Lady Penwood dismissing Sophie, stating that she will never work in Mayfair again. And so Sophie packs up a few of her possessions to leave the Penwood Manor, including the other glove she had worn at the ball, which she almost left behind. When she is saying goodbye to her friends, one of them gives her a small collection of money to hopefully get a week's worth of lodging somewhere. The ever so kind Posy hands her something wrapped in a handkerchief. Rosamund reminds Posy not to hug Sophie and wishes Sophie a neutral goodbye. When outside, Sophie opens the handkerchief to find shoe buckles, which Posy intended for Sophie to sell. Lambury goes to the Queen to apologize, and they continue their chess match from earlier in the episode. Queen Charlotte asks Lady Danbury why she wants to leave her. Cue the drama, people. Queen Charlotte asks why Lady Danbury wants to leave her, not Mayfair. So the Queen forbids Lady Danbury to leave. The Queen uses the power card, causing Lady Danbury to retreat. As Lady Danbury is walking away, something very unexpected happens. Queen Charlotte apologizes to Lady Danbury repeatedly. So I'm going to drop the formalities for a second because this was an emotional scene which brought up some tears there. Again, if you have watched the series Queen Charlotte, you'll understand exactly what is happening in the scene and why it is so impactful. Queen Charlotte breaks down to Agatha crying about when her husband will die and what if Agatha isn't there. Charlotte will be all alone as she has only ever had her husband and Agatha since the age of 17. Charlotte is absolutely terrified of being alone in the sense of true relationships and not servants. I agree with Charlotte that a lonely life is completely horrible and I wouldn't wish it upon anybody. So back to the episode. Sorry, I messed up. Back to the episode. Sophie attempts to sell the shoe buckles Posey had given her, but the vendor states that they aren't worth very much, as they aren't diamond buckles, but instead they are counterfeit. However, the vendor was interested in Sophie's necklace, which she will not sell as it's the only thing she has from her mother. And Sophie is on her way out of London. Benedict and Eloise have their singles club meetings on the swings once again. Eloise seemed upset and with Benedict as he was interested in marrying the glove lady, their words. Benedict is obviously upset by the fact that he had not succeeded in finding her, so he went off to another party and Eloise pleads with him not to leave her in their mother's hands. I had a funny thought about this show earlier. It seems as though every time Whistledown writes in her newsletter about someone, mainly a Bridgerton, being rake, then that very season that exact person marries. So in season 3, she called Colin a capital R rake, and Colin got married that season, where he had no intentions of marriage at the start of the season, and this time she had called Benedict a rake. So I wonder if he'll get married this season. I've seen a spoiler about something that implies he does not actually, but we never know. There is still many things that will happen as it is only episode 2, so a long way to go. Benedict is definitely out of it while he is at the party, and after a really long sleep at a party, he wakes up at another party. Sounds like a good party. We see some guys try to hit on a maid. Later, while Benedict is outside getting some air, he hears some commotion, so he goes to investigate. He sees a bunch of guys cornering that same maid outside, toying with her. As Benedict is walking over, we see another maid run forward and slap the main guy in the face, and she tells the other maid to run to the room. We can hear that the second maid is our Sophie. The main guy is angry with Sophie and starts yelling at her, implying he will do some rather ugly things to her, so Benedict runs forward and punches the guy in the face, giving Sophie a chance to run away. Sophie twists her ankle and doesn't get very far. So Benedict and the main guy get into a fight. The guy tackles Benedict, causing him to land on a glass bottle, which breaks on impact, and I could imagine that the glass stabbed Benedict in the back. So Benedict gains the upper hand and forces the guy to apologize to the woman, even despite the fact that she is a maid. Benedict then threatens the guy that if he ever sees the guy mistreat any woman poorly, then he will personally ensure the guy never returns to society. So I'm sure many girls fell in love with Benedict right there and then while watching. It is certainly a very welcome sight to see such a man who is kind and who has manners stand up for what he believes, especially in this particular manner. Again, I would like to say that I'm reading my wife's review for Bridgerton, so yes. Back to the review. Benedict and Sophie finally lock eyes. Sophie, of course, recognizes Benedict, but so much time has passed since the ball that Benedict had long forgotten how Sophie looks. As Sophie had just been fired, she walks away after Benedict asks. Let's try that again. As Sophie had just been fired, she walks away after Benedict asks how she knows his name, and she pretends to have just heard it earlier. We are shown another flashback to the moment of Lord Penwood's funeral. Lady Penwood informs Sophie that her life will be different now because Sophie was not at in her father's will. Sophie doesn't believe it at first because her father had promised to always look after her. Lady Penwood then tells Sophie that her mother was a maid who became Lord Penwood's mistress, which confirms my suspicions, but forgive me if I think that Lady Penwood is lying, just because she's not trustworthy. So yeah, I do not believe that Sophie was out of the will. I do not believe that Sophie's mother was a maid. And even if her mother was a maid, how did she have such an expensive necklace which caught the eye of that vendor? So it is, if it was given to her mother as a gift from Lord Penwood, then it would have been mentioned or implied, but nowhere was it implied, so I'm left to believe that the necklace belonged to Sophie's mother's family. And so Lady Penwood feigns to care for Sophie, allowing her to work as a maid, so she will be fed, clothed, and have a roof above her head. Sophie may be the daughter of a nobleman, but Lady Penwood states that Sophie is illegitimate, so her best hope is to be a maid. Who else thinks that there is way more that meets the eye when it comes to this backstory? So yeah, pop that in the comments. Benedict follows after Sophie, inquiring if she is alright and where she would find work in the middle of the night in the country. Benedict offers her work in London. Sophie eventually accepts his offer and follows Benedict back to London. Benedict keeps thinking he has met Sophie, but Sophie gaslighting him into thinking he has not. So, okie dokie, very, very interesting so far. Lots has happened and plenty more will happen. I've had many thoughts so far throughout this review, so let me know if you had any thoughts you would like to share in the comments below. I'd love to hear perspectives on what has happened so far. And if you have any theories, or if you agree or disagree with any of mine, so yeah, pop those all there. Also, if you liked today's episode, and then also please do show some love by liking, sharing, and subscribing. But that is it for today's episode of the Everything Podcast, and we will see you in the next one. Goodbye.